friends, and he's got a very special knack. If any of you have seen him on his TED Talk or any of his TED Talks, you'll know. Here's a sample.
I was only 4 years old when I saw my mother load a washing machine for the very first time in her life. That was a great day for my mother. My mother and father had been saving money for years to be able to buy that machine. And the first day it was going to be used, even Grandma was invited to see the machine. And then when she closed the door, Grandma said, "No, no, 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 let me push the button." And Grandma pushed the button, and she said, "Oh, fantastic, I want to see this, give me a share, I want to see it." And she sat down in front of the machine, and she watched the entire washing program. She was mesmerized.
He is mesmerizing. Hans Rosling. Why a washing machine? I mean, you could have picked anything.
No, it is one of the machines in the home that saved most working time. My mother and Grandma know what they were talking about. It really saved days of work.
And your point was above and below the washing line, which was a way of saying what?
Saying that this is the sort of standard level that everyone would like to acquire, because all environmentalists I've spoken to use washing machine for their jeans and their sheets. So that's the limit.
So everybody can relate to the washing machine.
Yes, because they use it if they have money, they'll use it.
Well, I'm so glad you came from Sweden to join us, and I'll give you my clothes when we're done. You can put them in the washing machine. So have a seat. All right, well, so what we'll do here is we'll open up this conversation, and as I said, if you've got your own questions or tweets as we go, please send them our way. But let me start with you. When you say and when you think about communicating science, what are you thinking, and who are you trying to communicate to? Because you can be communicating to students, you can be communicating to colleagues, you can be communicating to policymakers, you can be communicating to the public.
Well, most of what I do is in writing. I do a little bit of television, but most of it is in writing. And I'm trying to reach people who have no background in science, principally.
Who have no background?
No background, yeah. I mean, I hope that what I write is interesting to people who do have a background in science as well, but I'm trying to write things that will be accessible to somebody who's never read anything about science before.
And do you feel you can, is that easy or hard?
It presents certain particular challenges, because there's a whole vocabulary that you can't use. There's a technical vocabulary. For example, you can define a word like heterozygote, but most people don't have an intrinsic feeling for what it is, and so therefore every time they come to the word they have to be like, wait, what was that again? And so the challenge of trying to write for audiences that have no experience in science is to find a way to use language that does not cause them to stumble every time they come to it.
You've become a big-time communicator through your books, Letterman. You've been arrested because you showed up in various places. I think that's a form of communication. Why?
Well, why is pretty clear, because we have an emergency, a planetary emergency, and very few people recognize that. And
so going out on the front lines for you has become a calling?
Yeah, my grandchildren dragged me into this. I had decided, you know, I testified to Congress in the 1980s, and finally in 1988, because there was a huge drought, it did get a lot of attention then. And at that point, or the next year, I decided I'm going to drop out of this and leave it to scientists who are much better communicators and who enjoy it. And
you didn't enjoy it. We're back to the dentist versus the...
Well, there's also, I do enjoy what Richard Feynman said, the pleasure of finding things out. And that's science. And that's what I like to do, and that's what I think I can do, as opposed to communicating. So I would refer the media to Steve Schneider and Michael Oppenheimer, scientists who are good scientists and also good communicators. But by 15 years later, we had got to a point where it's extremely dangerous. If we don't begin to phase down fossil fuel emissions rapidly, we are creating a situation for young people and future generations, which is going to be very dramatic and very unfortunate for them.
So it actually would be correct to say that at that point for you, science was no longer enough. You needed to do more. You needed to connect that in what you consider to be a different way.
Yeah, and I thought that, well, if you make one really clear talk and document it and back it up with published scientific paper, that would be effective.
How'd that work?
It didn't work very well. Yeah, well, there are many reasons for that, but for one thing, we're fighting against an industry that does not want to make changes, and they have resources which are enormous.
Hans Rosling, do you make presentations and cite your statistics and back every single one of them up, as he just explained? Is that
I'm lazy, basically.
You're lazy?
Yes. So I have taken as my task to take the very undisputable facts which exist, and then go find the ignorance which links to them, and then work with that. Then life is easier. And you start with completely new finding and try to explain for other one. That's much more challenging. You have a real big things where ignorance is not really the problem. It's the difficulty to handle the facts. It is the difficulty to handle the probability. So I take what really is undisputable, so I won't be criticized. And on the other hand, I can be quite vulgar and funny then.
You can be vulgar and funny?
Yeah.
Would you like to demonstrate for us? I mean,
oh, yes.
You would like to demonstrate?
Yes, of course I would.
You promise you'll be vulgar and funny?
But I mean, it's interesting to see that really what I communicate is not scientific results. It's the products of civil servants producing public statistics. Then I use my science background to interpret and know what the life expectancy is, what the fertility rate is, and how to understand population.
Now, I know we're going to start, because we're going to have a little Hans Rosling demonstration. Wait a minute. Wait, you're a what's this sword swallowing thing?
Sword swallowing, it's one of the ancient culture which comes from India, which have shown people that the seemingly impossible is possible.
And you?
I learned this from Hjalmar Wickman, one of our great sword swallowers as a young medical student. And it's an inheritance of about 2 to 3.
So you're a sword swallower?
Of course I am.
Of course
I'm a
you
member of
so
SSIE.
I just want you to know what you're dealing with here.
Should we not mention fire and needles? Or?
Fire and, we can't do that, but there's fire code here. We're in Canada. If you pick up your handheld, your keypad devices, though, I'm going to turn this over for a few minutes to the good professor.
Yeah, I would like to make a test. So can we get the questions here? The first question is, as you may have noted, we are now 7 billion people in the world. How many will we be 2050, 40 years from now, according to the United Nations mid-estimate? That is the most probable estimate we have.
Okay, so
Please vote.
number 1 is 5 billion, but number 2 is 7, 3, 9, 4, 11, 5, 13. I get that. I get that. Now, you don't get to vote, see? We'll see how you do after.
Maybe it should be pretty easy, huh?
I expect very high results from this. I will be very disappointed.
See?
Okay.
Interesting result, very interesting result. I think we go on directly to the second question.
You're not going to tell us what the right answer is?
No, I'll never forget this result.
No, I see.
So
Okay.
I'll tell you later on which of it is.
All right, next question.
And that is the number of birth, the fertility rate. How many children are women giving birth to in the world in 2010, the last year we have sort of data on?
This is
in the world
this
as
is the
a whole.
global.
Is it 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, or 4.5? Can I help you a little? Like in 1960, it was 5.
In 1960, it was.
1960, it was 5 children per woman, 5 births
That's
per
50
woman.
years ago.
That's 50 years ago when we were 3 billion people. Now we are 7. So what is it today? How many kids do women get on average in the world?
And this is births. This isn't survival. This is
This
births.
is birth.
Yeah.
This is birth.
Yeah. Okay. You know the answer to this? You know the answer to this? Oh, no, I'm not asking this.
That's a guess.
Ooh, I made it.
How'd they do?
We did an agreement. If you are bad enough, I could give a lecture. Here we are. Here we are. Can I get my image here? Can you see?
He's stealing the show.
The
You
world
see?
population
Sword
was
swallower.
very small.
You're a sword swallower. You're stealing the show already.
Yeah. The world population was very small here. You know, medieval ages, it increased very slowly. Then it took off 200 years ago. When I went to school, we were 3 billion here, and now we are 7 billion. How will it continue? How will it continue? Well, many think that it will continue like this, just up there in heaven. And the prediction really is for 2050 is 9 billion. We will be 2 billion more. But I know, not that I think or am an optimist, I know that the fast population growth is soon over. That's undisputable. And something more or less like this will happen. It will stop this fast growth at about 2050, and then it may increase slowly or it may decrease. That we doesn't know. But the leveling off will be more or less on 9 billion. How could I know something about the future? And how could I stand in a science conference and claim that I know about the future? Because what determines that has already happened. Behind this graph here, on the other hand, something has already happened. And I know where people are made, you know? That's where you should go look. It's in the bedroom. You have man and woman in the bedroom, and in the past, hundreds of years ago, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 children on average, still in remote parts of the rainforest today. And why didn't the population grow? You can see 2 to 6, that should be 3 times more people in one generation, because 1, 2, 3, 4 of the children died. It's called the old balance. I get angry when I hear people say that in the rainforest people live in ecological balance with nature. They don't. They die in ecological balance with nature. But they do. They do indeed have an amazing knowledge about nature, and they have the right to get their human rights defended. But it's not because of some magical family planning device. It's child deaths. You know, and then what happened then 200 years ago when so many of my folks emigrated over to Canada and the United States? Did they get more children? No, they still got on average 6. The difference was that with the Industrial Revolution and soap and a little more science, only 2 died. It was the improvement of the health in Europe that made people come to the United States. And they increased here to about 7 billion. And then what I know is about to happen is the new balance. The new balance which we all would like to have, on average 2 children and no deaths. The death of your child is the worst thing that can happen you in your life. And we don't want that. We want the new balance. So how far has we come? How far have we come? This was my second question. And I will show you here. This is my favorite graph, where every bubble here is a country. The size is population, China and India. The color there show the continent. The light yellowish here is the Americas. Bahamas got pointed out. That was not intentionally. We should instead show here United States. And the brown one is Europe here. And this is 1962. Look, the number of children per woman, 2, 4, 6. Large families and short life, because here we have life expectancy, 40, 60, 80 years. The world really consisted of 2 countries, the developing world with large families and short life, and the Western world, or the developed world, with small families and long life. And what has happened? At that time, average 5 children per woman. You can see the balance, that this was the world average. What is the world average today? You were not very good on that question, I have to say, to be frank, which we can be in science. Here we start the world. Here we go. Can you see? Life is improving here, and family planning will soon start in China. Here they go towards smaller families. India try to follow here. Latin Americans don't care about the Pope. They go for smaller families. They use the condom. The Arab world, the imams is even helping family planning. Look at Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, make the fastest decline ever in modern history. The HIV epidemic tragically hit some countries in Africa, not others, and the rest of the world gathers up in this corner, a completely new world. The average number of births per woman in the world today is 2.5. We are almost there.
They didn't do very well. Hans, they did not do very well on that.
Pardon?
2.5. They didn't do so well.
This was a tragedy for this conference. This is the family today. Two-child families. Catholics in Mexico, Buddhists here, Hindus in India, Muslims in Bangladesh. Two-child